So today I'm going to show you about the circle of fifths. Here we are with the eponymous sheet of paper. And I'm going to show you how to get all of your major and natural minor scales, major chords and minor chords from one sheet of paper and a circle. So this is the circle of fifths. So first of all, you will need a black pen, a blue, a red and a green. And then a plate. I find the Mickey Mouse one works quite nicely. Afterwards, you could have a pair of scissors to cut it out, although I'll need my handler to help me with that. So, first of all, draw a circle around your plate. And now we need to put in essentially the 12 places on the clock. So I'm going to start with this. Let's put 12, 3, 9 and 6. I'm going to put my intermediate ones in. Don't worry too much about the alignment of this. Although you could buy a cheap wall clock from the pound shop and actually put this as the face. It's quite a good thing for classrooms and kids' bedrooms and anywhere else where people need to learn about music. So I'm going to put the letters in a certain order around here. I'm going to start with C at the top in the black pen. And then I'm going to change to the red pen for the right hand side, where I'm going to put G, D, A, E, B and F sharp down the bottom. Now this is the circle of fifths. It's the technical term given to this circle, in that the distance between C and G on any musical instrument is called a perfect fifth, and then G to D is also a fifth, D to A, etc. all the way round. If we go the other way from C, with the blue pen now, we get F. Going round from F, we get B flat. It's important to remember this, the B flat there, because we've already got a B down here. So now E flat, A flat, D flat, and then lastly G flat, which goes at the bottom with F sharp. So with your black pen you could do a little box around it to signify that they are essentially the same thing but written differently. Now inside the circle, using the green pen now, I'm going to put some more notes which are called the minors. So C and A are always together. Now, if we look at A there, we've got A here as well. If I go round one space from A, I get E. So the notes are essentially arranged in this order, in the same order going around here. But this time we've got something slightly different, in that instead of flats, we call these sharps round here. D sharp, which is the same as E flat. If I go round the circle here, I get D, and then G, C, F, B flat. Now the circle is complete. The best thing to do with this, the clock face, obviously we've got 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, all the way around here, but also imagine this as like a mirror image of the clock, so that you get -1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So I'll just put that, just put the numbers around this side as well. And so you've got 6 at the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. -6. Now, how do you use this then? Well, you have to know a mnemonic. And the best one to learn is this. Father, Charles, goes down and ends battle. Now, the reason this mnemonic works is this is the order of the sharps that appear in your key signature. So, for example, G major has got 1 sharp in the scale, which is going to be F sharp. If we go around to D major, it's going to have F sharp and C sharp, and so forth, all the way around to F sharp major, which has got 6 sharps. F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp. The reason this mnemonic works well is because if you recite it backwards, battle ends and down goes Charles's father, you now have the order of the flats in the key signature. So every single major scale can now be obtained from this circle, and every natural minor can also be obtained by following where the green letters are. So, for example, C major at the top you could think of as 0. This means that C major has completely natural notes in it. It doesn't have any sharps or flats or any additions. If you go to a piano, start on C and then just play each white note up to the next C, you've played your C major scale. So A minor, A natural minor, this applies to natural minors only rather than the sort of harmonic and melodic minors that you would find in a sort of graded exam on an instrument. In fact, grades 1 and 2 in some instruments you can do natural minor, and it does make a lot of sense when you're learning the theory because it's actually much easier to obtain the sort of maths, as it were. So A natural minor has exactly the same notes in it that C major has. So if you start on A on the piano, and then go up to the next A with all white notes, that is an A natural minor scale. So any of the natural minors, you just have to follow how many flats you've got to use on the way up. So for example, C minor would have 3 flats in it, which are B flat, E flat and A flat. So C minor would go C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat and C. Notice that the notes in the scale don't always follow in fact, very, very rarely do they follow the order of this because it's not alphabetic. So D major follows this because it goes D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. But that's really one of the only scales where it works. So there is a way of getting all of your major scales. Now the major scale itself is something that we've all grown up with. You know, anyone in the UK that watches BBC three nights a week will see EastEnders. And the theme tune is the first 6 notes of your major scale. Da, 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 dee, da, before dropping to the 4th note. Da. So, EastEnders, if you can sing the tune to EastEnders, you're singing a major scale already. So you're essentially answering the question. Now, that is really the important thing with music, is to try things out and then the theory comes later. It's like any of the trades. If you learn to be a plumber or a bricklayer or a chippy, you will be going out and doing stuff not necessarily knowing exactly the theory of what you're doing. You pick all that up afterwards, and I'm a big fan of that whole vocational side of doing things because I think that the experience is very, very, very sort of valuable. Having got all this, you can now get your major and minor chords from this as well. So if you want to know, if you're a pianist and you need to know any major or minor chord, you can do it. And I'm going to show you how you do it. So let's take C major as an example. So if I want a C chord, I find the C on the main letter on the outside of the circle here. And I get the C, and then I look one step clockwise to find the other 2 notes that are in my chord. So a C major chord has got a C, an E, and a G in it. So I'm just going to dot that as an example. So that is a C major chord. Now, how do you get a minor chord then? Well, let's take D minor as an example. So I'm going to find my chord as I usually would. So find your D, go round one space, and you find F sharp and A. But for D minor, if it's a minor chord, the reason I've written this in green is because your green letter is going to have to drop a half step or a semitone. So now your D minor chord would actually be D, F and A. Now, the good thing about learning chords in this way is that you're not learning shapes on the piano. You're actually learning the music theory of what happens. A D minor chord has always got a D, F and an A in it. So it could be this. F, A, D, or A, D, F. If I go around one more, I get back to where I started. You can see some piano chord tuition on my channel. Please do subscribe for future content. And I've also uploaded a video about finding lots and lots of different scales and chords. Take a look at that as well. And I do have a printout of that, which is freely available for your use. So that is finding a major chord there, and then a minor chord. You do this as the major chord, but you drop this note half a step. So I'm going to do two more examples. This time I'm going to come around this side. So I want a D flat major chord. So there's my D flat there. I'm just going to ring that in blue now so that so it just makes it a little bit clearer. So I'm going to go D flat, and then I'm going to go round one step clockwise and find my other two notes. So D flat major chord has got these three notes in. D flat, F and A flat. So let's have a look at B flat minor. Let's just go around those. Now I'm going to write that in green this time, so my minor chords are in green. B flat minor. Now this time, as with this chord, as is D minor, you have to drop the green note by half a step. Half a step is also better known as a semitone. That's the technical term for it. So the D now becomes a D flat. So my B flat minor chord will be B flat, D flat, and F. Or it could be D flat, F, and B flat. The combination of notes is the same, but you can put them in any order you like. So if I keep going, I'll get round to my first chord again. So these are all chords, that one, that one, that one, and that one. So there are three different chords there, with the first one repeated an octave higher. So there is a method by which you can find your natural minor, your major scales, major chords and minor chords. So it's a very powerful thing, and as you can see, I've done this absolutely from scratch, from just a single sheet of paper and a Mickey Mouse plate. So for the second part of this, here's my piece of paper that I've just drawn on. So I've got my keys going around here, I've got my Father Charles Goes Down and Ends Battle, I've got my major and minor chords. So if I just put this up on my music stand now, I can use this to construct any major scale. So, and you don't need to be a lightning pianist to do this, but it's worth having a keyboard so that you can just get used to the sound of these scales. So C major, as I described just now, is C to C with no sharps or flats involved at all. And A natural minor does this. Now that scale, that will rile some people thinking, well, that doesn't sound right, because they might have heard this, which is called the harmonic minor. Now that is more used, you know, it's a more used compositional tool. However, just for ease of the whole major and minor thing, it's good to think of that minor scale as being exactly the same as the C major scale, so C and A. The difference between a major and a minor is three semitones. So if I've got C major, I go down three semitones, not counting the first one. So it's the first one down, second one, and then the third one. I get my relative minor. Now, any of the other scales, if I pick E major here, so E is at the 4 o'clock position. So I've got 4 sharps, which are Father Charles Goes Down. F, C, G, D. Now, as I described a moment ago, they don't necessarily appear in the order, so you have to sort of tick them off as you go. So E, F sharp, and then G sharp's also there, A and B are just normal natural notes. Then you've got your C sharp, and then your D sharp, and then E. Now, the human ear, the Western classical tradition sort of conditioned person, will know what a major scale sounds like, as I described. EastEnders is in E flat major. Now, E flat is at the -3 position, so we've got 3 flats to worry about here. B flat, E flat, and A flat, and they're all in that theme tune. But everything else that's in that tune is white notes. So if there are, on this key circle here, you can assume that all the notes are going to be naturals unless you have to adjust them to the Father Charles goes down and ends battle and all of that. So, looking at the chords, if we look at the C major chord, which I've described just now as being C, E and G, now the correct theoretical explanation for this is that it contains the 1st, the 3rd and the 5th of your major scale. But you can find a chord very quickly without having to necessarily sort of be really au fait with your scales. So A is A, C sharp and E. I'm going to put a copy of this at the end of this video so that you can see it and and you can sort of freeze frame or take a screenshot or whatever. So an A chord has got an A, a C sharp and an E. I could change those notes around. I could have C sharp, E and A. Or I could have E, A and C sharp. Or I could have A, C sharp, E, which is where I started. Like that. So for minor, let's have G minor. So G, B and D is your major chord, but the green note here is the B, which goes down to B flat. It drops that half step. Technically, it would be the 3rd of your scale becomes a flattened 3rd. So there's your C major. So my flattened 3rd would be an E flat. So C minor would be C, E flat and G. And you can go and play any combination you like. From a practical point of view, the chord doesn't need to be all bunched together. You could have C, G and E flat, for example. Or if you really wanted to, you could do this. You could spread all the notes about. Notice, however, that if I'm playing the bass in the bass end, I would want my root note at the bottom. That doesn't really sound like a C minor. It is a C minor chord, but it doesn't really sound like one. Because the bottom here, the G, is a bit sort of bottom heavy. It doesn't really make much sense. So, but you can have chords where you have a different note in the bass. So you could do things like that. So there is a brief explanation on the piano, the practical explanation of how to use this.